All right, so I want to talk about the hairs modeling assignment that you're going to be doing or starting today. And when you come in on Monday, you should have a rough draft of this assignment. So I'm just going to kind of read through it. You can follow along, and then I'll add some other stuff. In the vignette Hairs, Sandra Cisneros reveals a lot about the narrator's family, especially her mother, through a discussion of one physical trait, hair. Her first paragraph describes the hair of the narrator's father and the hair of her siblings, using those descriptions to give the reader insight into each of their personalities. Cisneros also reveals the narrator's feelings towards her mother in the passage, using a variety of stylistic devices to achieve this effect. Think about the people in your own family, the characteristics you share with them, and those which make you and them, those which make them and you distinctive. Decide which physical trait you would like to write about. Is the trait one that you share with your family or yours alone? How might you present your piece as Cisneros did with metaphors, similes, personification, alliteration, repetition, and sensory details? So here is essentially the directions. Using hairs as a model, write a vignette about your own life that discusses an important physical trait and how it reveals something about the person who possesses it and your relationship to him and her. You may choose to discuss a trait that you all share, or one that makes a particular family member or you stand out from the others because it is different. You must incorporate at least 4 stylistic devices in your vignette. In a moment I will show you what I mean by those stylistic devices. So essentially you're modeling the writing of Sandra Cisneros, and as a writer you're trying to kind of take her style, absorb it, and mix it with your own, and really try and push yourself and stretch yourself in a new direction, specifically working with the stylistic devices, which we'll go over in a moment. As far as physical traits, you can certainly use hairs. I'll show you the one that I did on Monday. I used hands. You could use feet, any physical trait, and again, it could be something that you all share, or it could be something where maybe it's very different from person to person. But the idea again is not only are you describing the trait, but helping use the trait to show the other people's personalities, and I think as important, showing the relationship that you have with those people. So now let's move on to the stylistic devices. All right, so here we have, says the elements of style, and hopefully this can just stay up on the projector while you're working. A lot of these, if not all of them, are things that you know, but I just want to quickly go over them. So when we're talking about style, and again we're modeling Sandra Cisneros and her style, we're talking about the distinctive way in which a writer uses language, from how he and she put sentences together to his or her choice of vocabulary and use of literary devices. So I think already in the 4 chapters that we've read, you get a pretty good sense of Sandra Cisneros' style. A lot of figurative language, language that isn't necessarily complicated, but there's a lot there to think about. So just really quickly, metaphor is one thing you could use, a comparison between 2 things that are basically dissimilar, but you compare one to the other without like or as. So the example from the hairs chapter is, but my mother's hair is the warm smell of bread before you bake it. She doesn't say like, she actually says that they are 2 and the same, and that's what a metaphor is. For simile, you're comparing 2 things using like or as. So it's not quite as strong as a metaphor, but still effective. The example, my papa's hair is like a broom. So there you have that like that makes it a simile. Personification is where you take something that's not human and make it seem human. And my hair is lazy. And it goes on to say it does not obey barrettes or bands. And so making the hair seem like it has its own personality. Alliteration is the repetition of similar consonant sounds within a phrase or sentence. Example is, the smell when she makes room for you on her side of the bed still warm with her skin. The she really in there doesn't really quite fit. It's because it's the S sound. So really that smell side still warm with her skin, where that S sound is repeated. with alliteration, you have to be careful. If you use it too much, it turns into kind of a tongue twister type thing. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. You want to use enough repetition with alliteration so that you have that feeling of repetition, but not so much that it starts to feel like a tongue twister. Repetition, which is what we talked about with alliteration, is where you're repeating a word or a phrase or a group of words to give a dramatic effect. And if you look in hairs, you will see that hairs, hair, holding you, and rain are all repeated. Sensory details, we've talked about that plenty, using those 5 senses. The snoring, the rain, and mama's hair that smells like bread. So you have the imagery, you have the sense of smell, and obviously the sense of hearing with the snoring and the rain. So that's it. 4 out of however many these are is what you get to work from. You can certainly feel free to use all of them if you want, but really push yourself. Look at her style and see if you can push yourself to create your own work that really captures that same feel. So good luck with that, and we will look at it on Monday.